me, Kelly, again with Kellyton and Associates. We're talking about human-centered leadership. And I want to dive into, again, a little bit about psychological safety. And I know that I talk about psychological safety a lot, but I want to talk about it from a different angle this time. I feel that psychological safety is so important. I don't want to say lacking, but maybe misdirected in a lot of organizations. And so I want to talk today about psychological safety from the context of listening to your team. So think about it, a time when you've had a boss or a leader or even another team member that has dismissed your ideas, dismissed your thoughts, or maybe you weren't even given a seat at the table. And how did that make you feel? I know that I can speak from experience, and I've had those things happen to me, and it just pretty much shuts off any kind of creativity, any kind of thoughts, and erodes trust. At least that's how I felt. So interestingly enough, and I may have cited some of this before, but a workplace study by Gallup polls indicates that 60% of employees, this is globally now, are emotionally detached at work. So they're kind of just emotionally checked out. And only 33% of employees feel engaged in their day-to-day work. So that's roughly 70% of people who just aren't engaged, checked out. Only 40% feel like they're thriving. So again, we have over half of individuals that work in organizations that just don't feel that they're thriving or engaged, and they're just kind of checked out from their day-to-day work. One way I think that we can foster this among teams is from that psychological safety aspect, but really listening, hearing the words that people are saying and critically thinking through what people are saying, not just going through the motions, which is really, really hard to do, because on top of trying to listen day in and day out, we also have so many interferences that come our way, from the cell phone to the watch, which just happened to ding here for me while we're sitting here. Somebody went by my house to feed my dogs, and so now I know my dogs have been fed. But we have so many disruptions, and so it's really, really hard to sit and to listen, and not just to hear what somebody is saying, but to critically think and process through what somebody is saying. We listen roughly 400 to 500 words a minute. So we listen to things and process things in our brain very fast. We speak at roughly 150 words a minute. So we talk much slower than we process. And then the other thing that happens is, because we're processing so much information, I know this is kind of nerding out for a minute, but we're processing so much information that our brain starts to categorize and fill in things to help kind of compartmentize where things go, to help us process. Effective listening takes a lot of mental energy and effort. I am a work in progress. There are a lot more times when I'm not good at it than when I'm good at it, I should say. But listening can be really critical, and it's a skill to have when working with our teams, and a skill to really nurture. For instance, thinking of some things that are going on in our current news. A current large transportation manufacturer, who you all probably know if I say large transportation manufacturer that doesn't drive on the ground, they've been plagued with a lot of issues, a lot of manufacturing defects, issues, and actual incidents that have happened. Now, we don't know a lot of details, they're just coming to light, but there's a lot of news leaking that indicate this is an environment where employees weren't listened to. They weren't feeling heard, or I should say contractors working with this organization. They weren't heard. They weren't listened to. And actually it came to the point where they were fearing retaliation. And they didn't really understand. I think there wasn't this understanding of how their role fit into the bigger picture of the organization, in terms of, this is critical to the safety of individuals who use this mode of transportation. And so that comes back to what I talked to last week. It comes down to trust. Building trust really does help to strengthen relationships, and it helps to build support. Being proactive and actively listening to critically think through what somebody is saying, helps you solve problems. And if you're able to get to the root of the problem sooner, you can proactively address it, rather than just hearing the words and brushing off what somebody is saying. Are we taking the time to step back and say, let me think through this for a second? Even just a few seconds. Really doing that, actively listening, taking a step back to critically think, gives us the ability to make informed decisions based on facts and information, which in turn helps you build trust because people can see that you're making decisions based on information. So some other things to think about, or at least that help me when I'm trying to be actively engaged in my listening, which I try to do all of the time, but I'm definitely not perfect. Repeating what I hear. Okay, so if I understand you correctly, I heard you say XYZ. Following up on a conversation in writing, I'm getting a lot better about this. Having a conversation with somebody and then, hey, I'm just following up with you. These are the things that we discussed, A, B, and C. And then the other thing that I do that I actually read in a book a while back, and I was like, this is genius, is I bite the inside of my lip. And I think this came from Scott Miller in his Management Mess book. But I bite the inside of my lip to keep myself from responding right away to somebody who's talking to me. So if you see me with a weird face, it's because I'm biting my lip. It's not because I'm curling my lip at you or anything. The other thing to think about is to take in feedback, giving feedback. When somebody gives us feedback, remembering that we have the power to decide what we do with that information. We give feedback to remember that there's a person on the other side and to be respectful. Foster an environment where they feel comfortable giving you feedback. And then remembering that sometimes we have cultural differences. Having humility for people and empathy and understanding where they're coming from is also really valuable. Being reliable and honest, just remembering that there's a person on the other side. And hopefully this is some helpful information and a little bit of a different perspective on psychological safety and creating an environment where human-centered leadership is at the forefront. Love to hear your ideas and recommendations. If you do something else besides bite your lip when somebody is talking to you, love to hear about it. You can find me on the web at kellytinen.com, or of course, follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll see you soon.